say, just segue into, if I may, right, which is
Sure.
the role of the British ever
Hmm.
since, they didn't leave their colonies. They gave them nominal independence, but they used their
Sure.
embedded structures to keep control of them through their
Hmm.
proxies at a distance. And one of the things that I'm involved in, and I want to use your channel and my channel to remind people of, right, especially people in Britain, it is a criminal offense to pay any fine, fee, tax, or levy to central or local government in the UK. And we can actually use this as a legal, lawful means of protesting this government's foreign policy, but also its domestic policy. So I invite people to go to bit.ly/make war history, because by giving money to central government, where some of that money is being used to facilitate or fund genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, or terrorism, as specified by those statutes, as evidenced by British foreign policy in Yemen, Israel, Ukraine, and other places where they're funding proxies, you are breaking the law. Don't break the law by paying tax. bit.ly/make war history.
You're definitely not wrong about that, actually.
No.
You're also you have to understand that Britain, and I'm sure you understand this better than most, is in a major financial crisis. And they're not able to bail themselves out the same way a power like the US or Russia or China is, right? They need to sell either hard assets or they need to in some way implement austerity, which if they did, there would be riots, right? So, and they have this growing problem of illegal immigrants or legal, I guess they're called asylum seekers now, that are costing more money than the actual population of Britain is costing through the NHS and retirement and all of that. And they don't have a way to raise the money.
Well,
I mean,
well, Halsey, we do. Britain does. It has all these hydrocarbons.
mhm.
It has oil and gas and coal. So we could dig that out, and if the we could be self-sufficient in food, but it would take a change in policy and abandoning the net zero scam, that
Mhm.
complete swindle. And of course, it would mean Britain would have to exit Agenda 2030 and
Mhm.
playing that playbook, which they're not going to do currently. So we actually could. And then with regards to the illegal immigrants, it's not just the illegal immigrants, it's the legal immigrants in the absence of jobs and economic growth.
So I conflate the two because here we have a big difference, but I know what you're talking about. I agree with you 100%. I just it's terminology that we just
Right.
disagree on, but I totally hear you. And the problem is, and this is a big problem for Europe in general, is the EU. The EU has created these systems of Agenda 2030 and net zero and all of this stuff. And it was originally thought that the whole world would get behind these things. Therefore, the economic pain would be felt by everybody and everybody would be able to unite behind it. And most countries just aren't buying it anymore because
No.
they know it's bullshit. So when you know it's bullshit, you don't cut off your own hand just because you think that it'll mean that your finger will itch less.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Also, it's also forgive me for interrupting you, but it's also
sure.
it's European imperialism for the 21st century. So in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, the Europeans went around the world telling people in Africa and South America and Asia, hey, listen, we know what's good for you. We're going to give you
Hmm.
Christianity as a cover for plundering and your resources and genociding your people. And now what we
Hmm.
have, well, we don't have that anymore. What we have is climate change, the continent that is dependent, that is not self-sufficient in hydrocarbons. We're going to export climate change. It's for your own good, and it's a cover for plundering your resources and no cheap energy for you. And the
Hmm.
rest of the world, oh,
The rest of the world have had it.
yeah,
That's the point, is the rest of the world have really had it. You know, it's one thing to ask people to sacrifice for, let's say, peace or for economic prosperity or for something like that. But the idea that people are going to keep believing that by 2030 we're all going to be dead of climate change unless we completely destroy our economic systems, those days are over. Nobody's buying it anymore. And the people that pretended to buy it in the first place, like China and Russia, like, they're just saying, like, look, we were never really into it in the first place, but if you want us to keep making you solar panels, we will if you'll keep buying them, but like,
right. We'll keep building coal
Brit
power stations
right. But
and using gas
but
and oil.
Britain especially is, and trust me, if I understood this, I would probably be a billionaire myself. They're allowing their most prized industries to leave.
Yeah,
Like the commodities market has always been in the City of London, right? Now it's basically in the UAE because the City of London has manipulated it so much that there's no trust left. There's no people that want to invest in commodities futures on the idea that as soon as Britain decides that they want to change the game, they'll just manipulate the market. So the markets are just being transferred all over the world, and Britain's watching it go bye-bye. The Bank of London, which has been owned to manage the crown assets since what, the 1600s, is now owned by Saudi Arabia.
You mean the Bank of
Yeah, they
England
bought
owned by
it.
Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, they bought it a long time ago. The majority share.
Right. I didn't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and the real estate of London is being plundered by foreign investors to the point where Britain themselves don't own it.
No.
Like you can't maintain a city and a standard of living that's normal by Western standards if your entire property is owned by foreigners and they don't have that same vested interest than you do. In fact, there's probably a lot of countries that have quite a resentment against Britain for all that they've done over the years, and they're
Oh
more
yeah.
than happy to call in their cards.
Oh
As
yeah.
I said, there's a reason why Britain and France have taken in unlimited amounts of asylum seekers, which are obviously not asylum seekers. They're all military aged men. They're not even families, right? Like a child sees this as being a stupid call. And yet they're instead of willing to stop it, they're just willing to criminalize those that criticize it.
Yeah, but which is the cloud pivot strategy. It's throughout the European Union, the UK. I've covered quite a bit what's happened to Ireland. This beautiful, homogenous Roman Catholic nation, not an imperialist nation, didn't go around conquering other countries, was conquered itself for 800 years by the English, suffered loads as a consequence of that. And now something like 20% of the population are mostly male migrant Muslims in the absence of economic growth. It's one thing if they're coming for jobs, because then they got to be responsible. They got to integrate
Hmm.
and then they contribute to society. No, the government is just spending money on them versus on the local people. And so then you have resentment building and you have the local ants fighting these new arrival ants.
Hmm.
And then the
Well,
elite
because
carry on plundering.
you can look at, and it's funny because you take something that's true, right? And you twist it to a point where people start thinking that what used to be true is still true, and then they defend it with their lives. And the best example of that is diversity is our strength.
Hmm.
Okay, because in America in the early 1900s, that was 100% true. You know why? There were no social welfare systems. So only the best came to America because if you didn't survive there, you starved or you went home. There was nothing to boost you up. There was no welfare. There was no social systems. There was church charity, but that was all local. You can't just come there and be a bum for your whole life. Like the best came to America, and diversity was our strength. We had people from all different nations coming because they were all chasing this capitalist dream of hard work will give you a leg up if the government gets out of your way. We have now taken that in that the idea of diversity as our strength is that the diversity is of ethnicity, but isn't of talent, right?
Well,
So now we just,
I think the other thing, and this is the point that Martin Armstrong makes, is that to make it in the US, these new arrivals everybody had to learn English.
yep.
Everybody had to learn English. That's not the case here. And then what's happening is that there are particular strategies that this government are employing in order, and so I can see, to stoke resentment between communities. There was
Hmm.
the government giving money for the now people gonna know watching this right on Halsey's channel or my channel, you'll know I'm Muslim. I wasn't born here. I came here as an immigrant. My father and my father had a job. He had an interview. He came here, took the job. My mom got a job here, and with my brother and sister, and we grew up here. So and I'm Muslim. However, I don't want this nation being destroyed, and all people should be treated fairly. So the government's giving money for mosques, but doing nothing about the churches that are being destroyed.
Hmm.
So that's going to create resentment.
I mean, I'll just give you an example. My father's family have been here since the 1600s. They built America. But
Right.
my mother's family, like my grandfather on her side, he came during the war, right? And he escaped Germany. He made it. He was thrown in prison in Britain because he spoke German when he got there. And then he eventually made his way here. He had to be sponsored and he had to have a job when he got here. So they gave him a job as an electrician, something he'd never done before. He, of course, got fired after 2 weeks. And they gave him a choice. They said, no, they gave him three choices: get a new job, go back to Germany, or join the military. There was no, we'll take care of you. There was no, obviously, you're being oppressed, so we're not going to send you anywhere. And he joined the military. And he went to Japan and fought for 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Like that was America. America was, we're not responsible for your happiness. That if you're coming here, you're here to benefit the country. The country is not here to benefit you,
Mm.
right? And that attitude led to people working really, really hard, working together, learning English, learning culture, and learning how to survive in a country that wasn't going to get your back if you just decided that, hey, I'm a member of the human race and deserve everything for free. We've now changed that to where we give the social welfare to the people who just got here, which encourages the exact opposite. If they learn English, if they integrate, if they get a job, those benefits will be cut off and they'll be responsible for living on a very meager living compared to what they were getting under the social welfare system. So we're encouraging the opposite. We're encouraging the people that want better social benefits but don't want to integrate into the country to come. And we're dealing with that on a daily basis. Not as bad as we are as you guys are in Europe. Because with the bigger difference is that here we're dealing with it from Mexico and Central America, which aren't as bad as dealing with it from the Middle East and Africa. And that's just a fact. It's not a racist thing, it's just a fact.
No, well,
Right.
the people coming in from Mexico and Central America into the United States are a different shade of Christianity.
They're also economic migrants. They're not coming for any reason other than they want better working
They want
conditions.
to work,
So,
right? But yeah, the ones
right.
coming over into Europe are Muslims from the Sahel, from mostly Muslims from the Sahel, Africa, Middle East, Asia,
Hmm.
not only are they, it's not just they're Muslims, but they're from culturally different, so they're not going to be united, and they have
Hmm.
different languages. Whereas the people coming over from the Americas, Central America and South America, pretty much they all speak Spanish, and some will speak
Hmm.
Portuguese, and they can understand each other. So
Yep.
yeah, which is oh dear, it's not good. The outlook in
Well,
Europe.
it's not good, but there's a silver lining to this,
Okay.
in that the people themselves are starting to see that a lot of the things they've been told over the last 20 years just aren't true. And COVID was the catalyst for this. I know we don't want to get into it, but I'm just saying that COVID was the catalyst for people to at least start questioning what was going on.
Yeah.
And once you make a single question, then it leads to a second question, it leads to a third. Now, listen, there are plenty of people that have completely jumped headfirst into the concrete wall of conspiracy theory, where everything that they hear, no matter who they hear it from, has to be true as long as it doesn't go get back to the government somehow. Okay, those people are generally regarded as a joke, so they're not as much of a concern. But the vast majority of people,
You're in the UK, actually anywhere, get a VPN. If you want to be able to access all sorts of perspectives that the government thinks are dangerous for you, get a VPN. NordVPN.com/crypto-rich.
are at least willing to say there's something wrong here. Something is going on where my dollar is worth less or my pound is worth less. My job is not paying me more. And the prosperity I was promised if I worked hard for my future is not materializing in a way that it should be. And because they're willing to ask those questions, they're not letting people go with just stupid platitudes and slogans and letting them continue to plunder everything without in some way being looked at to be held accountable. Now, in Britain, I feel bad because I don't know why you keep electing the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party turns out worse than the Liberal parties, than the Labour parties, and then the
Oh
Labour
no, no,
parties
no,
just
no,
come to mop it up.
no. The Labour Party, the Keir Starmer is the worst ever, absolute worst. I mean,
Yeah, but it's the Conservatives that led to him.
sure,
Like without the Conservative bumbling of the last 20 years, the Keir Starmer would have never had a chance.
yes, and
You
my
know.
take on it is ever since Tony Blair, including Tony Blair, we've actually had those that have done puppets of the WEF who've been doing the bidding of the WEF. And what I
Hmm.
did say when Sunak became, with the possible exception of Liz Truss, who the Bank of England killed off, and what I said when Sunak on my videos when Sunak became prime minister, he's going to do such a god awful job. He's going to give Starmer an unassailable majority, and Starmer's going to destroy this country, which is exactly what's
Hmm.
happened. I mean, one of the examples of that during the general election campaign, Sunak comes out with this policy platform: vote for me, and we'll bring in conscription.
Hmm.
That's a vote winner? No, that's designed to drive votes into Labour. More people
Right.
will vote Labour, right? And now we have this hopeless condition where the genuine radicals, those that
Hmm.
actually are sovereigntist and want a better Britain, like David Curtin from the Heritage Party, like George Galloway from the Workers' Party, like Jeremy Corbyn, they are sidelined.
Well, you'll never get me to admit either of them aren't good people, but
Well,
okay.
whatever, but they're sovereigntists, and I think I'd invite you to look into David Curtin for sure, right? Because he's more of a traditional conservative in the vein of Thatcher, small
Hmm.
business, decentralization, small government, all of that, right? But they are sidelined, And I think your party is, which is Jeremy Corbyn's new party, is being destroyed by an operation by MI5, I suspect, because they don't want
Hmm.
people uniting under him. Instead, what we're being offered are the fake alternatives. Nigel Farage and this other guy, Zach Polanski, who's come out of nowhere as the leader of the Green Party, which is going up through the polls like crazy in order to capture any left wing based opposition, to capture that energy. And Nigel Farage on the right will capture the energy into dead ends.
Hmm.
We got nothing, and they're given airspace on the mainstream media, Farage and Polanski,
Hmm.
and I see them as little more than, I suppose, the equivalent of Mamdani
Sure.
in New York, right? The fake blow-ins that capture genuine revolutionary spirit and lead it into a dead end.
You see, that's our problem that we're going to have with Trump. Is that the thing about Trump is that when they say he's not a traditional politician, we don't look at it from terms of what's true. We look at it from in terms of what we wish was true. But what's true about Trump is that he's not a traditional Republican, he's not a traditional Democrat, but he doesn't kowtow to the small, insignificant wings of the base that mean nothing to him or mean nothing to the country. You're seeing it right now with this whole Marjorie Taylor Greene thing, right? When she was with him, he was all about supporting her. But when she came out and decided that it was better to go against him because, after all, there were probably more clicks on social media for her for it, and when she wanted more because she wanted to run for Senate and Trump told her to not waste her time, she went after Trump. All it took was one really nasty tweet from Trump, and now she's on the defensive. She's running for cover. She's running to the left wing media. She's running to the left wing politicians to try to like boost her up, and it's not working. Trump understands that he has an agenda, and he wants that agenda to get implemented. And whether you agree with it or not, that's his agenda. And if that means supporting someone that traditionally Republicans would hate, he's fine with it. If it means supporting someone that traditionally Republicans would love, he's fine with it. He doesn't care as long as his agenda is getting pushed in, and we only have 3 years left. In 3 years, Trump is gone. And if he loses the midterms, he won't get much accomplished other than foreign policy anyway for the last two. So right now, there's that mad dash of how much legislation can we get implemented that's going to cement the changes we need for the future, because whatever politician follows Trump, they're not going to have that boldness of Trump that he's willing to talk out against people that are in his own sphere of influence.
Right.
Right? Like JD Vance will kowtow to the more radical parts of the party because he thinks he needs everyone to get elected, right? Trump never was like that. Trump when he was just as good friends with Lindsey Graham as he was with someone more to the right, and he was just as against Thomas Massie and the rest when he realized that they were not going to help him get his agenda passed. And now he's been doing that. He's been implementing his agenda. And usually, almost every time they warn that Trump's going to cause this or Trump's going to cause that, the exact opposite happens. And it turns out he knew what he was doing the whole time, right? And I think that there's a genuine fear that, we have the best running us right now, and we have to support him because we don't have that much time left
Right.
before a more traditional politician comes in.
Okay. But MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Thomas Massie, their objection is about releasing the Epstein list because he said he was going to do that and he hasn't done that.
He didn't.
What's your
Do you know how
take
many
on
times
that?
he mentioned it on the campaign trail?
But he said
One.
in interviews.
One. No, one. One time on the campaign trail, they asked him if he was going to release the Epstein files in an interview. And he said, I'm fine with doing that, but I've never seen what's in them. And I'm not going to release something that just slanders a bunch of innocent people because there's no proof behind it. So when we get back into office, I'm going to take a look at it. And yes, if there's something there to release, I'll release it. If there's not, I won't. That's what he said.
Okay, but then Pam Bondi subsequently has said, look, we're going to release it, we're going to release it, release it. And by the way, I'm just curious. I want to get all sorts of perspectives. I don't understand it,
Hmm.
right? And I'm not buying the story that Trump's in there and that's why he's not releasing it, because I'm pretty sure the Democrats would have released that stuff if they
Sure.
had it, right? And they wouldn't have to do all that nonsense, pure, weak, go nowhere lawfare that they did, right? That would have got
Hmm.
rid of him. So So how come he hasn't released it? And then what's the big deal about releasing it? And why are Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene so hell bent on it being released?
Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene are so hell bent on it because Trump is supporting Massie's opponent in his primary next year. And Massie has always hated Trump, and Trump's always hated Massie. And you ask my personal opinion, I think that MTG believes that Massie's going to run for president and that she can get on as his vice president. I don't think that they'll win. I think that that's a joke, but I think they both believe they can. And so they're taking this stance on the Epstein list because they know that on the cuckoo wing of the party that's online and not in real life, that this gets some kind of traction. But again, if the Epstein stuff contained damning information about Trump and other Republicans, the Democrats would have released it a long time ago. If it released something damning about the Democrats, I bet you the Republicans would have been fighting to release it, and so would Trump. I have a feeling the Epstein files say exactly what we all already know, that Bill Clinton and certain other people, Bill Gates and all of them were frequent visitors. They were all there to fuck young women. We all know this. That's what people in power seem to do, right? And we all know that it's going to be embarrassing for a bunch of people, but it's not going to change anything. Like knowing the details that are in it don't matter. So they get more out of the argument about whether it should be released than they do about actually releasing it. And you know that if this week they vote to release it and the government comes out and says, okay, fine, here's all the files that we have that have the name Jeffrey Epstein in it, it's going to be a giant nothing burger. And people are going to be more pissed than if it was the most damning thing on earth, because they're going to say it's a cover up. They're going to say they released everything. It doesn't say anything. Therefore, they're hiding what it really should be saying. And you can't disprove a negative. You can't say, oh no, there's not more. Look at the box. It's empty. Because they're going to say, well, you hid the box. You hid what was in the box. And then how do you prove that that's not true? Right? So
Have
it's
you
that's
got
why,
Epstein files under your hat?
yeah, exactly. Right here. Like it's Epstein, we know who's been to Epstein Island. We've known for years. This is not anything new,
Okay, then
you know?
is it the ties to Israel and Mossad and MI6 and the
Funny
CIA?
enough, I don't think, no, that's what I think is the problem. I think the reason that there's a lot of politicians that don't want to release it are because of its trail back to Britain. And that makes our whole cause of being with NATO, being such close allies, I think creates a real problem. And I don't think they did it as blackmail, by the way. In case you haven't noticed, Bill Clinton got blown in the Oval Office by an intern and nobody cared, and they still reelected him. Okay, like if having sex with women, the like young
She she
women
she
was a
wasn't a minor.
right, but I'm saying I don't think that most of the Epstein women were either. I think there were probably some that were like that maybe lied about their ages at the time and were like 17, 16 or whatever. But where Epstein Island was in a British protectorate. And I have friends that have been to that area and said that just going there on vacation is difficult. Like that when you go there, you get the fifth degree and all of that. But somehow Epstein was able to acquire this island in this British protectorate, which I think all it says to me is that who's the Prince Andrew, I think it is, that's been like disowned by the entire royalty.
Mm.
I think it was just basically him. Like they had this thing, like you're going to create, you'll be able to influence, you'll be able to use your money to do whatever you want. You can fly politicians there, but I want a safe place where I can go party with lots of girls and nobody's going to ever find out about it. And I think that what they're going to find, as I said, it's a nothing burger. We all know this. This
Yeah,
isn't
and
new
I
information.
and I think Halsey, the other aspect that's also important that gets ignored is how Epstein was money laundering massive amounts and who
We
was he money
think
laundering
we don't know. We don't know where his money was coming from or how he made it.
and where it
Now,
went.
we all would like to think that means he was money laundering for intelligence services, right? But we don't know that. We don't know where his money came from. We know he made a lot in stocks and in foreign exchange and all of that. But do we know where all of Bill Gates's money comes from? No, we know the money comes from Microsoft, but we don't know the entangled web that he has of all the financial dealings he has all over the place. Same thing with Soros. Same thing with all of them, to tell you the truth. Rich people have millions of different financial tentacles. So was he money laundering? Who knows? Was he hiding money for different organizations? Who knows? Was he invested heavily and just trying to buy influence because he saw it worked with Prince Andrew, so why not try it with everyone else? Maybe. Was he working for intelligence services? He could be. None of us know these things, and I'm not sure they do either. I'm not sure there's a file where they can tell you this is who Jeffrey Epstein was and this is what he did. And as I said, anything short of the revelation that Tony Blair, Bill Clinton, and Benjamin Netanyahu were puppet masters over Epstein is just going to lead to more outrage than will be if they just say we're not releasing this stupid shit, right? And I have a feeling that that's what the argument is about, is that they know that whatever in the files is not going to do anything. And they realize the outrage from there not being enough information is going to be worse than if they said a whole bunch of stuff that was really damning.